Good afternoon. Good afternoon from Munich in Germany. We are live from the Future Forum in BMW Welt, right at the headquarters of BMW. Good afternoon to Europe, to Africa and the Middle East. Good evening to Asia and the Pacifics, and good morning to the Americas. My name is Sven Jánszky. I'm the chairman of the largest European future research institute, and we joined forces with BMW to bring you a series of 6 extraordinary talks on the future of humankind, the next 100 years, which is based on a study, on a research which is conducted in my Future Institute. Maybe you remember our last episode. I introduced you my son Benneth. Benneth is 5 years old today. You can see him right now. 5 years old, will turn 6 in 2 weeks. Probably in this moment he is playing in our garden, and I can tell you he is crazy for Pokemon Go. So the only thing I want to tell you with this is it's not science fiction. He is alive. I will see him tonight. And in our series, we talk about these kids who are born in the past 5 years, who probably have a lifespan of 100 to 120 years. And in our last episode, we talked and discussed what happens if my son will see his 120th birthday. So in this case, we would have 115 years time from now to come up with new technologies, probably in computing, in computer sciences. We could imagine to create an artificial brain and to do the brain upload and this stuff, and this would lead us in a situation when this generation of these kids would be the first immortal generation. So I don't know. There are many ifs in this story, but it drives me crazy to look into my garden and see the first immortal person. Today, the second episode. Today we want to jump into the year 2048. And in our study, in this year, 2048, Smilla, which is today a daughter, will start her training for Mars. And then we jump into the year 2101, so 85 years from now, because this is the year when, in our study, in our story, the first extraterrestrial person will visit planet Earth. So not an alien, no, it's a human person, but born not on Earth. And maybe this person is my son's grandchild. To prove these predictions, if these predictions are on track with the front runners in the new space race, I invited 2 guests for today, for our session. First is Aliya Grig. Aliya from Moscow, founder and CEO of the Human Cosmos app and the Cosmos City, and you will hear her story in about 15 minutes. Aliya is here. Can you hear me, Aliya?
Yeah, hi, great to be here.
So a big hi from my side to Moscow in Russia. And the second in our round is Christopher Mason from New York City. He's a geneticist and a professor at Weill Cornell Medicine College in New York City. Hi, Chris, you can hear me also, right?
Yes, good morning. Good morning.
Hi. Chris works with NASA, and he works on a 500 years plan for humankind to survive, and also he will publish a book about the next 500 years in April. I think in 3 weeks. I checked Amazon. They say April 20th should be your book published. Is it right?
Yes, that's right.
Perfect. Chris, who else could take us on a journey into the future, into the next 100 years and give us a roadmap on our way to Mars? Could you please give us this roadmap in the next 15 minutes?
It'd be my pleasure. So thank you so much for having me. And you can hear and see me okay? It sounds so good?
Perfect.
All good there? Great. So we have a series of slides that, let's see, we'll pull them up here. Great. Okay, great. So I'll give you a 15-minute condensed summary of basically what's in the book. And it's really, what I would like to say here is a a dream of hope and duty for humanity. It's what I believe that we are actually responsible for, and something that we can do that is a new vision of what I think is to come. And so when you open the book, you'll see pages that start from a lot of the technology that began in the 1950s and 1960s. Of course, we made it to the moon multiple times. But then looking forward, and I'll just do it from a high level here, eventually we end in the year 2500 with a wealth of biotechnologies that have led the way. And the reason I believe that this will all come to pass is because more than ever, we are a spacefaring species. Last year, the most objects ever launched into space, and the years before that were also record holders. And so what we have now is basically a new space race. So NASA wants to get to the moon and Mars as fast as possible. China, India, Israel has had a lunar lander. They also landed tardigrades onto the surface of the moon. We've seen that the Chinese have landed plants on the moon. You can see these are pictures from cotton plants that have sprouted on the moon. We also have seen, for example, that the ability to not just get things on the planets, but also to understand their biology has rapidly expanded. So this is because the cost of sequencing a human genome has come down almost sixfold. You can see it used to be millions of dollars. Now it's in thousands or hundreds of dollars to look at all the genetic components of one organism. And so what we're using this information for today is actually to continually find new human genes. There are 10,000 more human genes today than there were 10 years ago, and we will continue to find more of these genes. We've also used this information to find new species. There are not as many new birds as you can see, but new species are continually being found. And we've even published just last week, new species are found on the International Space Station, new forms of bacteria. So we are continually finding new species, but in some cases, we are also losing many species and many organisms. Since 1970, about 1 out of every 4 birds has died. That's in North America. Some have grown, but most have lost. And this is not the first time. As you can see throughout the history of Earth, there have been multiple times where there have been large-scale extinctions. This is the temperature of the Earth over the last 500 million years. And every time there's been a large change, it's anywhere from 70 to 96% of all species on Earth have been obliterated. And there's worries that we might have this happen again. And what's interesting is that humans are the only extinction-aware species. Only we are the ones who understand this, and only we are the ones that could actually potentially clone a species that's almost gone extinct and bring it back to health. And so I argue in this book, it's a moral duty to our species and to all species to actually protect human life and all the other organisms on which we depend. And so to do this, I've laid this essentially out as a 500-year plan for our species and others, as well as to survive here and then on other planets. So I'll walk you through. We just finished the first phase. Phase 1 is to begin to understand the human genome and look at outlier studies of humans. So for example, one of our studies, we looked at identical twins, one who went to space. Now one is Mark Kelly, who's a senator, and Scott Kelly. And this twin study was actually, sponsored by NASA. I was the head geneticist of the study. And we studied everything, for example, from how, let's see if this will play. There you go. What happens to the body when you're in space? What happens if you get a vaccination in space? You can see here Scott Kelly giving himself a vaccine in zero gravity. And we looked at blood work. We looked at his cardiac output. We looked at all aspects of his body, his stool samples. We looked essentially at his cognitive functions, really everything that we could measure about what happened in his body. We took measurements before, during, and after the mission. And you can see here in 0G, he finished his vaccine, kind of covered it up, and gave us a thumbs up. And then after he spent his year in space and undocked from the space station, we was carrying back with him samples that he'd collected over the course of the year-long mission and was bringing them back towards Earth. And, we're very excited and nervous because this was the first year-long mission for NASA where he brought samples back. So a chute deployed, made its way through the atmosphere, and then he landed at the time in Kazakhstan and was helped out by a lot of other cosmonauts to help him get out of the spacecraft, and kind of gave us a good, once he got out, a good thumbs up to say that he was doing okay. And what we found is that many, many things changed during that flight. So in this, we published this paper in 2019, is many microbes changed, molecules changed in his body, his blood work. The body was very stressed by space flight, but also it did come back to normal when he got back to Earth. But almost every part of his body had to adapt to space flight. And so this gives us many molecules that we want to keep an eye on for future missions. So what we're planning now is just that. So there are more missions being planned now that are year-long missions and long-duration flight. We're testing the impact of spaceflight on cells, and eventually the goal is to get boots on Mars. This will happen in this next phase. and we'll also be beginning new elements into human and mammalian genomes. So in particular, we have projects with NASA, one of them here, we're getting astronaut data out to the year 2033. We've also begun working with SpaceX that will, as they begin to launch partners into space. This will be the first all-civilian mission that should be this October, launching into space. We're also working with them. And in these next 20 years, we don't just want to measure changes, we want also to begin to defend against the damage to the body. So could we add, for example, internal armor the way we add external armor? So we call this once we have fleshed this out in the next 10, 20 years, in the phase 3, we'll begin long-term trials on human genome engineering to look at their effects. So for example, we'll need this for some of the trips to, like, for example, going to Mars. We can see that damaged DNA is coming out of the urine of the astronauts in flight. You can see here in gray, this is where all the damaged DNA is coming out of the body in the urine. And we'll want to actually stop this from happening and protect the astronauts. And we know that this is the amount of radiation that's been observed by, say, X-rays or other astronauts. You can see Scott Kelly in blue in the middle, the light blue. And the Mars mission would probably be 1200 millisieverts, the most radiation yet for any astronaut. So we want to take lessons from other organisms like tardigrades that have survived in the vacuum of space and see if we can take preliminary data that showed that if you add some of those genes from tardigrades, maybe they could defend against radiation. So maybe if you purify the protein, it can help. We've now created human cells that contain the D-sub protein stably transduced, and it actually responds to damage quite rapidly. And so we're thinking about adding components from other organisms and also doing what's called epigenetic preemptive expression. So you can turn on a gene just as you need it right in time for radiation response and then turn it back off later. So phase 3 of the plan will involve a lot of testing of these genetic and epigenetic editing mechanisms. When we look further, we can think about then testing these in phase 4, really looking at really protected genomes in space environments. Can we see what happens, for example, when there's an orbiter that's circling around Mars, which is planned for the late 2030s and 2040s? By then, you could have enough people living in the 2050s that we could see how well these genomes do in space environments. And we also want to help it so that people can even survive in space. So for example, can we remove molecular ineptitude? There's 9 essential amino acids that we don't make for ourselves, but we could add them back into human cells. Or vitamin C, we still have the gene inside of our DNA, but it's no longer activated. We could reactivate the gene for vitamin C. And we lay out in the book a real detailed plan of which amino acids and which essentially genes we could turn back on or add back in here. So for example, the 9 amino acids and vitamin C. Okay, so at that point, then we're getting further. It's now getting towards the year 2100, and we could start to looking at going to other planets or thinking about synthetic genomes, for example, going to Europa, or thinking about converting Mars to be self-reliant. And to do this, we'll need to build genomes from scratch effectively. So to do that, we know this is already possible from work that's been published to date. And we know that other organisms can even survive in these really extreme environments. So for example, we have a project looking at how can different organisms survive in really, really strange environments. And you think of things like Titan or other faraway places. And other planets sound like they're very difficult and far away, but they're actually very similar. There are many places on Earth that have sites that mirror what you might find on places like Titan or other planets. And so we can actually learn from the adaptations of biology from organisms here on Earth to then apply that as we go to other planets. And then you can see here, this is in the 7th phase. We can eventually send these genomes to basically seed these kind of Earth-like planets. And so in this case, this is what it looks like on Mars, but it doesn't have to stop there. We could do the same thing on other planets as well. And actually, this brings me to some of my favorite parts of the book is by the year 2200, 2300, we'll begin to say, well, what planets are out there? Where could we possibly go? And there used to be no known exoplanets, but now we actually have thousands of exoplanets that have been discovered since the early 1990s, especially. And they're using transit monitoring. We can, new planets are found almost every day that are good candidate worlds. And they're not all bad places. Some of them are actually possibly habitable exoplanets that we could send people to. You can see here what they look like as a function of size that we could imagine sending some samples to. And in the book, we detail which planets would be the best places to go. So for example, there's an Earth similarity index, which Earth is 1 because it's the place we live now. And other planets have similarity index that are close, like Mars is kind of close, but there are other exoplanets that are even better places to go that we have discovered. And there's a range of them all within 5 parsecs. There are other ones that are farther away, say 10 or 15 parsecs. These are examples of other planets in the book we talk about. But what's really exciting about this is that all these planets have only been discovered You can see this is within 20 parsecs. This is within 5,000 parsecs. All of them have been only found in the past 10 years, really, and they're all very close to us in just this part of the Milky Way. So there are so many other planets that are likely to be found all over the rest of the entire galaxy that we just haven't had the time to look for yet. And so what that means is by the time we get to 2300, 2400, we'll probably have good candidate planets to send people to, and we'll have to send them there probably on a generation ship, a ship that basically humans live and die for multiple generations on the same spacecraft on their way towards a new planet. And at the end, if you look far, far ahead, we have the question of should we prevent the end of the universe to make sure that life persists, or should we allow self-destruction of the universe, hoping that life will rise again? And I think as we've done for most aspects of our existence, we will try to survive. I actually think it's our duty to do so. And that if you think about doing this not just on Earth, but thinking about Mars, this is not the first time we've done it. We already have planetary scale monitoring, measurement, and management of Earth, and Mars would just be the second time that we've done such of a large-scale effort. So I want to close and thank very much all the twins, teams, PIs, and teams who made this work for that mission, as well as several other missions. Thank everyone in the lab who makes this work possible. Funding, of course, from NASA and the NIH and WorldQuant, and then also to everyone in the lab. And thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Let's talk a little bit about your predictions, and especially about the thing, or your predictions for humankind, actually, because we are talking about the next steps for humankind in our sessions. So you mentioned you're also working with NASA on the metagenome, so for life in space. So meaning manipulating the human genome, and probably or everybody knows this, especially in Germany, there is quite a rejection of manipulating on the human genome. Why do you say we have to?
It would be unethical to send people to a place where they would be certain to die if you had a way to protect them. So this presumes that the gene modification, the genome editing is perfectly safe, has been well established. That's why I don't think this would happen until 2040 or 2050, because I would want to have multiple generations of studies where we've examined the safety and the efficacy of any of these manipulation systems. So I think only if we have shown that it is safe and effective should it be used. But we know from mouse models and other animal models that it can be very effective and very precise and lead to entirely new functions and features being granted to organisms, to primates, to mice. So I think it's just a matter of when, not if, it happens.
I pick one question out of our comments here. The question is, what happens if this will cause several timelines for our species? So he says dark age versus present people versus science fiction. So do we get different human species on that way you predict?
We eventually probably will have the same way we have different ancestries today, where people have different hair, eye, and skin color. We would almost certainly have different different ancestries. Whether they would become a different species that could no longer mate with human species, I don't think that would happen for a long time. That would take millions of years. It could eventually happen, though. If you have someone for millions of years on a planet that doesn't come back, that could happen, but it would be a much longer time frame. I think so. We will just be very much like different, people going to India or going to Japan or going to Brussels or going to New York City. They'll look different.
In one of our next sessions, we will talk about more the ethical questions in all these future predictions. You write in your book that humankind has the moral duty to colonize other planets or solar systems. Others would argue that humankind has the duty to subordinate itself under Earth's nature and climate. So can you explain your ethics behind? Because there is a huge ethical gap, I guess.
Yeah, there's lots of people have different ideas, but the duty comes from the sense that if we just stay here, the duty comes from the sense that life is a unique feature of the universe, that as far as we know, it is only found here. Maybe we'll get lucky and find it on Mars, but life, and particularly sentient life, is as far as we know, extremely rare. And in particular, humans are the only species that understand extinction. So we're the only ones that know it's a risk. And we're the only ones that can understand that even if we have a perfect Earth and we only stay on Earth, if we just stay here, given enough time, all life on Earth will be destroyed. It'll eventually be engulfed by the sun. So we're the only ones that understand that, are the only ones that can actually work to protect our species or other species. So the duty, if you just simply examine every ethical question in the time frame of 1 billion years, it's immediately clear that at some point we have to leave.
Understand.
And if we don't, then everything we've ever built, everything we've ever known, every life form that's ever existed that we're aware of, would all be gone.
Okay, so my last question. So you talk about the next 500, which is obviously hard to predict. But if you predict, what do you think? Looking back from 2500 to the last 500 years, so what would be the greatest learning humankind will have discovered?
Great question. So yeah, I think it's a good comparator of where were we 500 years ago, and there a lot of ships began transiting the ocean to find really new worlds at that time, and much of it was done in an awful and colonial and aggressive manner. But I think this case we'll see the same thing, that propulsion methods and survival methods for getting out into space will get better and better, and hopefully we can have not a colonization of space, but more of a just people exploring it and building sustainable and self-governing entities that would maintain their rights and maintain their liberty rather than take away from it.
Great insight. Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks to New York City. Everybody who is interested and who wants to dive deeper, get Chris' book. April 20 is the publishing date, and who doesn't want to wait, we have already today available a download of a NASA timeline for space exploration. So where you can find interesting dates, when will be the first city on Mars and the first extraterrestrial people visiting Earth and all that stuff. So it's for free. Use the link in the comments right here, and you get this inspiration for free. Thanks again, Chris. Now we hand it over to Aliya. Aliya is fascinated for the space all her life. Her mother was a lead scientist in a well-known the Pulkov Institute. Her family members did research on black holes and all that stuff. And she also dedicated her life to the space exploration. So she founded a so-called Cosmos City, which in the end should become a space station for 10,000 people. We are not there yet, obviously, but she will explain you where we are and what are the next steps to life in space. So, Aliya, it's your stage.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. And so today I'll share a little bit of my vision about the space city and about the whole idea about living in space and why we need that. So yeah, it works. So a long time ago, actually in my childhood, and thank you for mentioning this, I was really fascinated by the topic and by the idea that one day we all can live in space, and it's not just about like creating just a space station or creating a kind of like another international space station. It's about like creating opportunity for more and more people to go to space, because in my opinion there is an effect of it's called an overview effect. So when you look from the space to Earth, and it was already mentioned by various astronauts, that you can have another view on the planet, and you can have another view on what's going on our planet Earth, and you feel kind of like more united with other people. So the whole idea, and you can see on the slides, it came to me in my childhood, and I even started to draw various space stations ideas, and saw that how great it will be to create not a space station, but the whole city where lots of people can live and can create various technologies. And 4 years ago, we started with my team to create concepts for the city in space, and we started. You can see it on the slides. It was the first prototype of our station, so it's we put as a concept and as idea various concepts created before. It's from Dyson to Tsiolkovsky because it's really important to have in space a rotation, because in that way you can create an artificial gravity, because currently the most huge disbalance and disadvantage of going to space, it's of course lack of gravity, because it influences a lot our body, our muscles, and our health overall. So the idea was to create an artificial gravity, and that's why the station, you can see at the slide, it has this wheel format. Then further on, we created various ideas of how where it can get power, and we created various concepts for solar stations, and also for this particular concept we created an idea that it can have also a separate moon base where it's possible to decoy materials for 3D printing it. Then we had also created a space shuttle, also a new type of shuttle which can deliver cargoes and people there. And it's possible also to try new types of engines based on the technology of propulsion. So we created all this and then started to think that how we can start this project, because the whole idea is to, and in my opinion, you can do this project only in collaboration between various countries and people and companies, because this kind of project, the same way as International Space Station, it can only be done when you collaborate between different various technologies and various companies, because it's impossible to do a project like this only by one company, because it has too much investments in it and too much things that you need to put inside. So that's how we started to think about. And by the way, here you can see some of the concepts of how this space city will look inside, because it's really important to create inside the environment where people can feel themselves really happy and satisfied, because the current disadvantage of existing space stations that it's really hard to be in space, because you feel your lack of things that you get used here on Earth. So, for example, like normal buildings, trees, nature things. So it's really important to create all this inside the space city. So further on, we started to think and develop various concepts, and one of our latest projects that we created together with our engineering team is the station you can see at the slide. So we started to think about the prototypes, and you can see the small blocks which we created the station from. It can be easily 3D printed, and the whole station can be easily assembled. So you can make it in the form of a modular construction. So you can put each block to one another to create the whole station and to grow it quite easily. So currently, based on my personal background, because I had previously launched successfully various startups, and one of my startup was producing 3D printer to print in zero gravity in outer space. We started to think how we can use these 3D printers to print in outer space, and we tested the technology already, and we plan to start in 6 years to make the first prototype of this small first block of the space city. So from these modules you can easily assemble the whole construction, and it can be easily adjusted, and then it can grow. And we plan to start this station and to build it in Lagrange point 2. Lagrange point is between moon and Earth. It's actually the best point where you can put the space city and space station, because on the one hand it is quite easily accessed from planet Earth, from the moon, and on the other hand it has opportunity to study the deep space and to investigate the deep space, because you can send missions from the space city to the deep space. So the main idea and the main agenda about the space city, and it's also based again on my experience doing various technologies. So overall I have 12 years background creating various technologies, from sustainable technologies like fuel cells up to new type of alloys. We created successfully new type of aluminum and scandium alloy, which is really light and really great, especially for aerospace industry. Then we also, together with my team, we created a new type of 3D printing technology, which I already mentioned, and we also tested various types of engines to make all the launches to space like more accessible and cheaper. So based on all this, I thought for a long time that it's really important to create the space city not just as a technological concept, but also and take into account a human being and our own development, both physically and mentally, because it's also a very important part of our kind of like development in space. And on the other hand, it's also kind of like a social project, because it's important that space can become the same fashionable and popular topic, like for example virtual games, because the more people will think about space and space technologies, the faster they will develop and the cheaper they will be. So that's why we started to create different phases. To start, by the way, this is some of the other renderings of the space city that we are currently creating, and you can see the construction, and it also has this artificial gravity inside. And this is a really futuristic design, also created by our team, of how bionic structures in space can be, because we also studied that structures with bionic design can be really interesting for space, because with bionic structures, the bionic materials, for example, they were tested so really great in one of the Israel labs. And bionic materials, they can grow themselves. So that's a next level of 3D printing, where material can grow. And I know that there were already positive tests in MIT for growing materials for various buildings. So currently when we started to think how we can spread the project and spread the whole idea of the space city, we started to think about the space city here on Earth, because I do believe that it's really important not only to develop technologies in space, but to create an opportunity for the people who wants to grow, who wants to evolve, who wants to transform their lives, and to make a breakthrough in our society, to create a physical space for them where they can co-create, co-work, and co-develop those technologies. So that's how the Cosmos City project here on Earth started. So currently you can see our building rendering and the slide. So we started from selecting various types of the project, and we have this the Cosmos City, which has a couple of angles. So it's an educational project about space, future, and sustainability. It's an entertainment project with immersive show, like going to a future space city about space in order to inspire people with a space topic. It has also an innovation hub for space tech, sustainability tech, and future tech companies inside. And it has also a residential area and hotel for people who want to come there. And it has also a special block which is dedicated to human development, where you can improve your health. You can study various soft skills and hard skills, because I do believe that it's really important for space and for our future space development and space exploration to develop ourselves as a human being, as a both from physical and mental side. So currently for this project, we have two land options. So one in California, it's 10 kilometers from LA. We have there 35 hectares to build the project. The overall building size will be 180,000 square meters. And the other option for land we are currently discussing with Portugal, with Lisbon in particular, because I do believe that the European Union has a great opportunity to develop technologies, and there is a huge program with the European Space Agency for space exploration and for sustainability. So we currently have two these options for land to start creation of the project, and hopefully when the lockdown will end, we'll start the construction. We plan to open the Cosmos City in 2025, and the main audiences are both general public, which are interested in space and in future. It's people who want to get instruments for personal development, to develop their skills, and it's engineers, scientists, and startups who wants to create their technologies together with the like-minded people. So overall, we create here on us an ecosystem for creating and building the future city in space. And there is also some renderings of how it will look like. We created and patented it already with our team, this architectural concept, and we created a unique methodology for human development and edutainment together with scientists from neurophysiology and psychology, because we created a new mechanism for immersive education for people and for kids too. And we also use the latest VR and multimedia technologies to make to bring people to this experience of a future space city. And there they can also gain new skills and educate themselves about about space exploration. And we plan also to have their acceleration for young talents and young generation, because for me personally, I am mother of two little kids. It's really important to create a physical places here on Earth where our kids can learn, can study, and can create together great things. And for me, it's really important to create for them a real world, not a virtual one, not a game, not a social media where they spend all their time, but to create a real project, a real thing where they can participate. And this is also some of the renderings what will be inside this Cosmos City here on Earth, and it will be also a special planetarium to study solar system, and a special zone dedicated to our planet Earth, because for me, the cosmos overall, it's about both the space exploration and our planet Earth development, because I do believe that space can bring us great technologies to make our planet Earth a better place and to improve some of the climate issues and sustainable issues going on here. So just a few lines to finish the presentation. I'm currently also developing we have already launched the Human Cosmos app, which is dedicated to our personal development. We created with my team an artificial intelligence system which aggregates data from neurophysiology, psychology, and provide a very simple and easy tool for personal growth and development, because I do believe that it's really important to develop ourselves, and it's a key to develop breakthrough technologies for space and for our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Aliya. And we have many questions, and we want to answer these questions in a Q&A session in a second. But we will do this Q&A session on an own Q&A page. So it means, Aliya, you do not click anything. You stay as you are. But everybody else, you find a link in the comments right now. And if you follow this link, if you click this link, link, then you will get to the Q&A page, and in a second we see each other on that page, and then we do the Q&A session. So you are invited to follow this link, and this brings you directly to the Q&A page where Aliya will answer your questions. So let me do, Aliya, let the two of us, meanwhile the others come to the Q&A page, let the two of us do a icebreaker question for this Q&A. So when we met the last time, in 2019, I guess, you have been pregnant. So I know you have kids, two you mentioned. And looking at your kids, do you see them fly into space? Personally, in person?
Yes, of course. Well, and actually, that's a big idea behind the project. That's like imagine like around 100 years ago in 1920, like only rich people can afford themselves cars, and like nobody can even think about like flying from New York City to Paris, for example. And now it's like it's affordable for many people. So I believe the same thing will happen with space exploration next 10 years, because we already see lots of companies and lots of competition in space exploration. There is SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, and other companies which are creating technologies for space. And the more companies will be in space, the cheaper we will have access to space, and the cheaper, I mean, tickets, facilities, and space tourism will be. So I think yes, and in my timeline, it will be 15 to 20 years. We will have an opportunity for more and more people to go to space, like for vacation.
So this would mean not only for your kids, but or for yourself. Also for yourself, right?
Yes.
So in your family of cosmonauts, you will be the first who really can join a flight. Is it true?
Yeah, and but well, I'm really, of course, interested to go to space, and I'd love to go to space with my family. But my main goal and main mission is to create an opportunity for many people to go there, because it can really shift mind of people. I mean, about their attitude to our society, to our planets, and to have this overview effect about. What's going on in our world.
I see. So let's talk about the space station, which is the ultimate goal in your project. Looking at the first Mars pilot exploration projects, which are in preparation right now, or which say that they are in preparation right now, they are constantly looking for people with a one-way ticket. So meaning once you get to the Mars, there is no way back. And so in order to create a civilization there, this is what they say. And this is probably a way of selecting people. So only the people with the best courage will apply for this one-way ticket. My question to you is, what is the selection for Cosmos City, or the space station? Or in other words, what should I teach to my son to be prepared for the first batch?
So I think that, and it's based in our methodology in the app that we already launched. I think there are a couple of angles. So first of all, it's really important to develop physically. I mean, to develop physical body, of course, and to maintain a good health. Second, it's also very important to develop our psychological state and kind of like psychological conditions in order to be emotionally stable and to manage to overcome various situations and various challenging situations, because we discussed it even with my scientific team that currently during the lockdown we are all in kind of like with this isolation. We are kind of like in a really challenging conditions, and it's kind of like really challenging for our mental health, and it's really important to manage to cope with this, to overcome these obstacles and this challenging situation. The third angle, it's our consciousness and our broader opportunities of our mind, because the majority of scientists, of neuroscientists, prove that we only studied our brain and only for 20%. And I think it's really important to develop our brain. I mean, both memory, intellectual abilities, because it can also help in space and can help in development. And of course, all the hard skills like engineering, robotics are really, really important for space and space exploration.
So everybody is invited to watch out for your app. Probably there is more to learn in this app on this question. Back to the idea of this huge space station for 10,000 people. Do you foresee somehow an Earth-like travel, so between this international space city and Earth, so with highways and gas stations and so like on the Earth surface? Is it the picture I should imagine?
Yes, sure, and that's the main idea, because I'm actually. My project is totally opposite to Elon Musk's idea of Mars exploration, because Elon Musk, he's selling kind of like this one-way tickets and one-way idea. I'm against this, because I think that space needs to be like a very comfortable place for people, a place where you can go for vacation or can go to work and then can come back to planet Earth. And the whole space idea, it's not about, okay, we almost ruined our planet Earth, let's go to Moon or to Mars. It's rather about like, okay, let's make acceleration to technologies, to technological and scientific development through creation of the space city. And because this can help our planet Earth and can improve our planet Earth. And of course, the main idea will be to have it really accessible, to have like various transport access there, like, because there is already projects of Japanese elevator to space, and it can also be constructed in the nearest future, and technologies like space shuttle and so on, it will also increase and develop.
That's impressive. So about which timeline are you talking in these things? So is it in your lifespan? Is it in the lifespan of your kids?
Yes, of course. So the timelines, as I mentioned, the Cosmos City here on Earth, we plan to open it in 2025, and to have there like a special section dedicated to creation of the space city. And the space city, we plan to start creation of the first module in 2026, and hopefully to open it by 2030. And then in the next 10 years, we plan to increase and grow the station.
Okay, one remark from my side. So everybody is invited to ask questions. Use the Q&A and the comment buttons on the Q&A page, please. And then I will get your questions and I will tell your questions to Aliya. So one question from the Q&A page: how will the current pandemic alter your predictions? So is there a somehow an influence from this pandemic on these long-term predictions and long-term plannings?
You mean about future overall in general?
Yeah, about future in general, but also your plannings. If you say you want to start the first module to space in 2026, so it's 5 years. Is there an influence of the pandemic for this planning, for instance?
Well, not so much, because we continue to work during the pandemic last year, and because the space station will be here on Earth, the Cosmos City, I mean, here on Earth will be, and we are going according to our schedule, so not much changings, and yeah, everything is in plan.
Yeah, this would also be my answer in the last session when I made the predictions for the next 100 years out of our study. All the technical things, the technology predictions are not really touched by this pandemic situation.
Yeah.
So on the long run, actually. But Aliya, another question. Here on Earth nowadays, so in societies, in politics, we have a kind of, I would call this a step back of progress. So the ones say America first, the others say China first. Probably there are some people who also say Russia first. And some say on this Earth, on this Earth's surface, this will lead us to a new kind of Cold War. So how is this in Cosmos City or in the space station, in the huge 10,000 people space station? Will there be also this reality world's nationalism? Will this be also on the space station, or will there be another kind of nationalism? Will they say Cosmos City first, so space station first? What do you think?
Well, my opinion that our planet Earth is first, because I really like this expression of Buckminster Fuller that all of us are citizens on a huge spaceship called planet Earth, and we are all like going all together through space. And I think that space, it has no borders, and space is for everybody, and it's not like it's not a question like who is first. It's rather a question like how we can unite together. And I think that's where I also started my presentation, that space, it's actually to unite us together. And from space you can't see borders. You can't see borders, I mean national borders on our planet. And from space you see that our planet is united, and it's really important. It's the only actually way to start the space exploration and to make an evolution of our civilization, is to be united between the different countries, nations, and to be kind of like not split with religions and national questions, but to be kind of like above this. And space and cosmos, I mean cosmos as a general thing, it's the thing that unites us, and it's more and more important. And I think that in futures, well, you can start this, you can see this already, because for example cryptocurrencies, they already changed the borders, they already changed the financial system, and it will continue more and more, this changing of financial system, of the national system. And space, it's the next step to be like us united with all together as Earth people.
But do all these technologies also change the human morality, the human ethics, or do we have to enhance our human morality for this?
Of course, and I think it's a part of our social evolution, because if we take, for example, medieval times, medieval times, for example, it was a huge rival between people. But then, for example, when Christopher Columbus discovered America, it started to make a breakthrough in minds of people, because they realized that they're not the only one at this planet, and there are like much wider world around. And I think the same thing with space, because when people will go to space, it will bring their evolution in their moral and mind and mentality of thinking about themselves, about the society overall. And currently people are kind of stuck in this kind of like very narrow minds mentality, and that's why we have so many fights and so many competition between countries and so many like huge political fights. And we need to make these shifts through space exploration, because it can also bring a kind of like United Nations. I mean United Nations not as organization, but I mean United Nations in terms of like thinking about our society.
So let's work on this. I have a very last question, Aliya. You mentioned your 2 kids, and I have 3. My son is 5, as I mentioned. And when we are talking about the life of our kids, and this is what we do in this next 100 series here. What do you think? What is your take on this? How many years we are talking about? What do you think? What is the lifespan of your kids? Is it 80? Is it 100? Is it 120? 150? How long is it?
Well, I have in my background, I studied a lot Vedic culture and kind of various Eastern philosophies, and I even spent some time in Kashmir in India, and I met a couple of people, a couple of yogis who was over 120 years old, and they looked, yes, they looked not young, but they look great. And I do believe that our physical body has endless resources, and we can live like really 120, 150 years. And it's about like developing our resources, but not with AI or robotics, but rather with like opening our potential, opening our mind potential, opening through this mind our health potential, and managing kind of like to work with our gene system and genetics and cells and so on. So it's I think that for my kids, I have a prediction that they can live 120 years at least, but in reality maybe 150, or even myself. Well, who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? And we will dive deeper.
I'm working on this.
Good, good. We all do a little bit. So in our next session on April 26th, we will exactly in this topic, we will dive deeper. So we will talk the future in health and the future in medicine. So mark this in your calendar, April 26th. Then we continue this session on the future of humankind. For today, I thank you a lot. Greetings to Moscow, to Russia. Aliya, hope we will meet in person in the next couple of months again. Hopefully this is possible in this COVID times. Thanks again. Have a great evening to Russia.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
And everybody else in this session, I think we have a lot to think about. We have a lot of predictions, the roadmap for the next 100 or 500 years, the new space race. I think you got a quite deep impression what projects are in the next 10, in the next 20, in the next 30 years are coming in this new space race. So if you want to be connected, I invite you to buy 3 things. First of all, buy Chris's book. In April it will be published. Second, this is what you can do today. Download this NASA roadmap to Mars, and you will find the dates, the years when all the milestones will or probably will be finished. And third, have a look at Aliya's Human Cosmos app. These are the 3 things you can do today to dive deeper. And of course, mark the date, April 26th in your schedule. April 26th, 5 p.m. Central European time, for the next episode in this series in the Plus 100, the future in your health. Or you could also ask, not the future in health, but you could ask, will my son, will Benneth, become a cyborg in the next 100 years? We will have an answer on this on April 26th. Live from the Future Forum here in BMW World, right in the headquarters of BMW. So thank you very much. Thank you for joining today. All my best from Munich, Germany. See you in April on this channel, and have a great future.